Oh, Jeff. How are you? Good. Good. Hi. Good morning. How are you?
Haven't seen you guys for a long time. Well, that was down
Dates are going to trip and fall and bust everything for you.
my honor and great privilege to welcome you here on behalf of Wally's family. I know that his family is very happy to share in the celebration of his life today. And I want you to note that there will be a military honor directly after the service on the east side of the building. And then directly following that, there will be a catered lunch that you are all invited to attend. There is an elevator that goes to the lower level, so please join the family at that time. And now, let us pause to reflect upon why we are here. We are gathered here this morning to worship God and to offer thanks for the life of Wally Johnson. We've come to recognize our loss in his death and to celebrate his entry into life eternal. As we begin our service of celebration, let us remember these comforting words from the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Friends, we gather in this house of God to remember the life of Wally Johnson, to remember he is now out of our sight and touch, but never out of our hearts and memories. We gather as people always have when their lives are struck by sadness. We gather to embrace Joyce and Wally's children and their extended families and friends with love and support. We gather in God's presence to share our grief, to share our loss, to share our pain, to share our common human frailty and utter lack of control over things which mean the most to us. We gather to hear God's word of hope that can drive away our despair and move us to offer God our praise. And finally, we gather to commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Wally Johnson as we celebrate the good news of Christ's resurrection. For whether we live or whether we die, we belong to Christ, who is Lord both of the dead and of the living. And now, let us be blessed with some special music shared by Wally's son, Rod.
It was a great privilege to grow up in a home where a mother had a heart, song in her heart always, and a father who loved every type of music. And one great memory of Dad is Sunday afternoons in his reclined position, having a nap, and listening to Tennessee Ernie Ford records, and listening to all the great hymns. And one of them was How Great Thou Art, and it was his father's favorite song. It's my privilege to sing for my father today. Sing my soul, my sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shouts of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Will you please join with me in the responsive litany as found in your bulletin? Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is dying to self that we are born to eternal life. Let it be so. I have a story that I like to share, especially when there's children at a memorial service like this. And so I'm going to come down and read this. It's called Water Bugs and Dragonflies. It's a story, a resurrection story. So let us hear the words that God has to speak through a children's book. Down below the surface of a quiet pond lived a little colony of water bugs. They were a happy colony, living far away from the sun. For many months they were very busy scurrying over the soft mud on the bottom of the pond. They did notice that every once in a while, one of their colonies seemed to lose interest in going about with its friends. Clinging to the stem of a pond lily, it gradually moved out of sight and was soon seen no more. Look, said one of the water bugs to another, one of our colony is climbing up the lily stalk. Where do you suppose she's going? Up she went, slowly. Even as they watched, the water bug disappeared from sight. Her friends waited and waited, but she didn't return. That's funny, said one water bug to another. Wasn't she happy here? Asked a second water bug. Where did you suppose she went? Wondered a third. No one had an answer. They were greatly puzzled. Finally, one of the water bugs, a leader in the colony, gathered his friends together. I have an idea. The next one of us who climbs up the lily stalk must promise to come back and tell us where he or she went and why. We promise, they all said solemnly. One spring day, not long after, the very water bug who had suggested the plan found himself climbing up the lily stalk. Up he went. Before he knew it was was happening, he had broken through the surface of the water and fallen onto a broad green lily pad above. Weary from his journey, he slept. When he awoke, he looked about with surprise. He couldn't believe what he saw. A startling change had come over his old body. His movement revealed 4 silver wings and a long tail. Even as he struggled, he felt an impulse to move his wings. The warmth of the sun soon dried the moisture from his new body. He moved his wings again and suddenly found himself up above the water. He had become a dragonfly. Swooping and dipping in great curves, he flew through the air. He felt exhilarated in the new atmosphere. By and by, the new dragonfly lighted happily on the lily pad to rest. Then it was that he chanced to look below to the bottom of the pond, where he was right above his old friends, the water bugs. There they were, scurrying about, just as he had been doing some time before. And then the dragonfly remembered. He remembered the promise. The next one of us who climbs up the lily stalk will come back and tell where he or she went and why. So without thinking, the dragonfly darted down, and suddenly he hit the surface of the water, and he bounced away. Now that he was a dragonfly, he could no longer go into the water. I can't return, he said in dismay. I tried, but I can't keep my promise. Even if I could go back, not one of the water bugs would know me in my new body. I guess I'll just have to wait until they become dragonflies too. Then I'll understand what happened to me and where I went. And the dragonfly winged off happily into its wonderful new world of sun and air. Will you join me in reciting the 23rd Psalm? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. And from the prophet Isaiah, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. And from Paul's letter to the church in Rome. Don't you know that when we were baptized into Christ Jesus, we were baptized into Christ's death? We've been buried with Jesus through death, and we joined with Jesus in death, so that as Christ was raised from the dead by God's glory, we too might live a new life. For if we have been united with Christ in the likeness of Christ's death, we will be united with Christ in the likeness of Christ's resurrection. We must realize that our former selves have been crucified with Christ to make the body of sin and failure completely powerless, to free us from the slavery to sin. For when people die, they have finished with sin. But we believe that having died with Christ, we also live with Christ, knowing that Christ, having been raised from the dead, will never die again. Death is now powerless over our Savior. And portions from the book of Hebrews. Faith is the reality of all that is hoped for. Faith is the proof of all that is unseen. Because of faith, our ancestors were approved by God. By faith, we understood that the world was created by the word from God, and that what is visible came into being through the invisible. By faith, Noah, warned about things not yet seen, revered God and built an ark in order to save his household. By faith, Sarah and Abraham obeyed when they were called and went off to the place they were to receive as a heritage. They went forth, moreover, not knowing where they were going. By faith, Sarah and Abraham they lived in the promised land as resident aliens, dwelling in tents with their children and grandchildren, who were heirs of the same promise. For they were looking forward to the city with foundations, whose design and maker is God. By faith, Sarah received the ability to conceive, even though she was past childbearing age, because for she thought that the one who had made the promise was worthy of trust. As a result of this faith, there came forth from one woman and one man, themselves as good as dead, descendants as numerous as the stars and the sand on the seashore. And found in the Gospel according to John. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me, Jesus said. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and I will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. But the kind of peace I give you is not like the world's peace. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. Let us join in singing hymn number 21. This is my Father's world. All who are able, please rise and bow
Last night at the visitation, I was pleased to see so many of our friends and relatives present, and on behalf of the family, I want to thank everyone for the kind words and condolences. My dad was a very good father, and in the weeks and months to come, I will always remember him with a smile on my face, and I will miss him. Being the son that lived the closest, I made it part of my daily routine to drop off my King Charles Cavalier Wilson every morning that it worked out to spend the day with him. We always joked about whether Wilson was being cared for by them or whether Wilson was taking care of them. 37 years ago, I came to my dad and I asked him to consider taking on a partner in his insurance agency, and the rest is history. We agreed on some pretty tough terms, $125 a week, 100% commission, and more or less that meant that I had to either produce or I was going to make it. He knew exactly what he was doing. I still remember the day he stepped into my office and said, "What do you got going?" I said, "Nothing." His comment then to me was to get my rate book, get in my car, head west on Highway 30, take the first right, stop at the first place, and ask them if I could write their insurance. I was scared to death, but eventually it worked out, and I wrote the account. I was kind of a know-it-all. If I'd have been my dad, I probably would have fired me. But he didn't, and it worked out very well long term. He had more patience than anyone I ever knew. His style of teaching was amazing. Today, as my agency staff has grown, I still think back to the way he taught me. And I still use his ways on a daily basis to lead my employees to the point they need to be, based on his ethics and principles. And even today, everything he taught me still works with all the changes in my profession. I had two idols in my life. My grandfather, Arnold Haber, who was the first State Farm insurance agent in town, and my father, Wallace Johnson, in my opinion, the best insurance agent in town. Two amazing role models. I owe all my success to these two people. And by the way, whether any of you knew, my dad was a very rich man. Not necessarily in the size of wealth, but in his reputation, his integrity, his children, and his grandchildren. And his amazing wife, who cared for him with so much love and compassion. And in the later years, that sometimes I wondered how she did it. Very dedicated. All my brothers and sisters have been very successful in their careers. And I want them to remember one thing. The reason they've done so well is because my dad gave them the ability to communicate with others. This has been also handed down to their children. And it is the very reason that everyone in the Johnson family gets along so very well. With texting and social media, this communication skill is slowly fading away. I thank God for being born into a family that loves each other and gets along so well with each other. On behalf of Mom, my brothers, and my sisters, I want to thank each one of you for being part of my dad's life and being his friend. Thanks again, Dad.
Wallace Johnson, better known to everybody as Walt, was born on September 15, 1930. He was one of those three Johnson boys whose family moved several times before landing in Mapleton, where Wally would graduate from high school. Today we celebrate this man's life and we give thanks to God for how he blessed so many other lives. Now, I have to admit, I've only been here for 2.5 weeks, and I didn't have the privilege of getting to know Wally. But after listening to his family stories of him, I'm sure that it's me who's had a loss for not having had enough time to get better acquainted with such an incredible man. You heard Mike mention how Wally was a man with great integrity, and after spending time with Wally's family this past week, it became clear to me that he was the type of person who dedicated himself to serving his family, his friends, his customers, his church, and his community. He was a good man. On August 20th, 1952, Wally married Joyce, right here in Mapleton, at a former location of this church. And that marked the beginning of a new life for both Wally and Joyce. They were quite a team. They raised a family and started a business of their own. Wally was a devoted father who took an active role in the lives of his children. He made sure that they never went without, and as you heard referred to, he was a great teacher who later became an even greater mentor to his children as they grew and took on lives of their own, creating their own successes and spreading their wings. One of the many lessons he taught his children was how to be a good steward of money and how to run a business from the earliest of years with paper routes. He was patient with them, and he never raised his voice. He didn't like fighting among family members. He always wanted people to make up, let go, and move on. Having gained some medic training while in the Army, Wally was the go-to person when you were hurt. He may not have always gotten the diagnosis correct, but the family learned that he knew his stuff well enough that they better listen to his medical advice. One thing that Wally truly enjoyed was playing cards. He played cards with his children on a regular basis, and later in life he passed that love on to his grandchildren. Now, you heard me mention that Joyce and Wally were quite a team. One way that Wally demonstrated that was by never leaving all the parenting to Joyce. He always had her back. And together, they did a mighty fine job at that parenting thing. 2-week camping vacations, well, they were a staple every summer for the Johnson family. They were always chock full of memorable experiences. Sometimes those vacations took them to D.C. or other distant places. But one place that carries a boatload of memories is Laurel Lake. I'm told that there was nothing better than watching Wally show off his vast array of talent as he competed with others to pull off the craziest of stunts on the lake as his children watched from the shore. Wally's children brought him an immense amount of joy, and his grandchildren and great-grandchildren only proved to multiply that joy. Papa Wally, as he was known to them, always wanted to have a close relationship with his grandchildren and later great-grandchildren. Yes, so Wally was quite a family man, but he was also a very successful business person. His insurance career began in the back of a van that he had converted into an office fully equipped with desk and filing cabinet. A business that began on a very small scale soon took off because people quickly came to trust Wally. It was obvious he was looking out for them. He really cared about the customers. When I gathered with some of Wally's family earlier this week, they shared a story that reflects the type of business person that Wally was. As I recall it, the story goes something like this. One day, Wally heard the fire siren go off, and he jumped in his car in order to find out if that fire truck, was headed to one of his customers' homes or to their farm. And he wanted to make sure that he was there, Johnny on the spot. He wanted to make sure to reassure his customers that everything would be okay, that he would do whatever was necessary to get them back on their feet. You see, Wally didn't want his customers to do any unnecessary worry after having experienced such a devastating blow. His customers knew that they could count on him. Many, in fact, made him their personal representative because he had proven to them over and over again he was an honest man worthy of their respect. That trust was what caused the business to expand so much that he needed to take on a partner. And you heard about that from Mike. Well, he retired, and I put in quotes, retired, at 62, only later to return because they needed him to help with preparing taxes. But one of the qualities that served Wally very well in business spilled over into his personal life. He was an extremely organized person, I'm told. One example of this was how his garage was meticulously organized. Everything had its place. In fact, he was known to try to do the same thing with his children's garages. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much. Having lived in Mapleton for nearly his entire life, he made sure to give back to this community in a variety of ways. Whether it was as a mason, a shriner, he loved driving those little cars around, being a scout leader, or taking part in the American Legion, he enthusiastically gave back to a community that he loved. And let's not forget his love for curling. No matter anyone's age, they seemed to just be drawn to Wally. He was truly loved. Because Wally was so rooted in the life of this community, Mapleton was blessed with a man who, to this day, grown men will talk about him with great respect because years ago, Wally was their scout leader. But I would be remiss if I did not mention another part of this community that Wally was a part of, and that was this church. As Joyce said to me right before he was here, he would have been in the office helping me move in and do everything that needed to be done, finding out things. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. But he was devoted to this church. He served on various boards and committees throughout the many years that he was a member. He became the go-to guy whenever something wasn't working because he was always fixing something. There wasn't anything he would do for this church. He lived out his faith and continually gave back to God through this church and this community. Traveling was another love of Wally's life. The kids tell a story about the first camper. It was known as, I believe, the tent in a box that was strapped to the top of the car as they headed out on one adventure after another. And then there are those RV trips that took him all over the United States. Trips that involved Joyce, and friends, and an array of family. But the true love of Wally's life was Joyce. His wife and dance partner for 64 years. Their love was deep. I mentioned earlier how Wally didn't like fighting to go on in the family. Well, Joy shared with me how that played out between her and Wally. Because if she went to bed angry with him, and we've all been in that place that are married, Wally somehow had this way that he could convince her everything's going to be okay before they fell asleep. He knew this dance partner. Joyce and Wally shared 64 wonderful years together, and the passion they shared was dancing. Joyce told me that he was quite a dancer in his day. One particular story mentioned took place at a resort in Arizona. One night they were dancing. And just before this had taken place, something had happened. Joyce couldn't remember the details, but something had happened that caused Wally to cut off his wedding ring. And so they were dancing and enjoying the evening when all of a sudden there seemed to be a number of single women who were inquiring if they might have a dance with Wally. Because, of course, they didn't see a wedding ring. Soon after that experience, Joyce made sure that ring was replaced. They were not merely dance partners. They were partners for life. Wally Johnson was an honest man, respected and quiet, outgoing, a dedicated church member, a successful business person, a committed community man, a loving father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, and most of all, a devoted husband. He lived a life that has left an incredible mark on so many throughout his 86 years of life, where he dedicated himself to serving others. So whether it was a farmer turned insurance agent and tax preparer, a father turned grandfather, or a friend on which you could always depend, Wally Johnson's legacy will be forever etched in the hearts and minds of not only those gathered here today, but of all those whose lives have been made better because of having known him. Last week, Wally fell and broke his hip. And Joyce brought him to the hospital, where they learned he needed surgery. And although surgery was deemed a success, the fall would mark the beginning of Wally's final days. And last Sunday, Wally bid us his farewell. And although he faced challenges in those final years, he lived life to its fullest. And although that being a reality, he had Joyce by his side every day, supporting him through it all. Later in life, he had his children to do the same alongside their mother. No one would question Wally's love for his family. We truly can be grateful that Wally was able to spend his final days surrounded by family. Thankfully, he was in the process of leaving this world of ours to enter into God's loving arms, he could hear the voices of those he loved as they shared what was happening in their families that day, reminiscing about days gone by and dipping their toes into the pool of happy memories that had graced his life. And just like the devotion on the back of today's bulletin will attest, Wally took his last breath, which was precisely the same time he took his first breath in heaven, because he is now in God's presence. Thanks be to God. So for Wally, the struggles of life are over, and he will know nothing but eternal happiness and health from this day forward. As for us, we bring many feelings to this place today, and although we may not know the details of what God has prepared for him or for any of us after death, we can be assured with the Apostle Paul that whatever is to come, nothing in all creation, not even death, can separate us from the love of God. So let us be of good courage, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we need fear no evil, for God is with us. The psalmist reminds us to lift up our eyes to the hills from whence our help comes. My help comes from God, who made heaven and earth. So too, let us remind one another of these words. Use this time today and in the months ahead to support one another, to share your stories of Wally, to cry, to laugh, to express your feelings, maybe just to be silent with one another. May God envelop you with the warmth felt here today, and may you be reminded of Wally and all the love he had for those dear to him. We now release Wally, while also acknowledging the great gap that his death will leave in the lives of those who mourn. May healing flow from sorrow, hope emerge from darkness, and memories become even more precious, so that past and present be as one in the mystery of God's love. And from this day forward, we know and can be grateful for the love of Wally that lives on through Joyce, Michael, Julie, Rodney, and Kate, Wally's grandchildren and great-grandchildren, along with his many, many friends. Lives have been made better for having known. Now let us pause to hear some special music again.
Which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I want to share a poem that I believe captures how we might handle the tears shed today in our loss, and how Wally must have foreseen the storm ahead of him, and so he, like an eagle, chose to rise above it. Did you know that an eagle knows when a storm is approaching long before it breaks? The eagle will fly to some high spot and wait for the winds to come. When the storm hits, it sets its wings so that the wind will pick it up and lift it above the storm. While the storm rages below, the eagle is soaring above it. The eagle does not escape the storm, it simply uses the storm to lift it higher. It rises on the winds that bring the storm. When the storms of life come upon us, and all of us will experience them, we can rise above them by setting our minds and our beliefs toward God. The storms do not have to overcome us. We can allow God's power to lift us above them. It is God who enables us to ride in the winds of the storm that bring disease, tragedy, failure, and disappointment in our lives. We can soar above that storm. Remember, it is not the burdens of life that weigh us down. It is how we handle them. For the Bible says those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. May we learn from the eagle and choose to face our grief and allow the Holy Spirit to raise us on eagle's wings so that we too might soar high above the storms of life, lifted by God through this time of mourning, resting assured that Wally is with God and at peace. Amen. Holy God, by your mighty power you gave us life. And in your love you have given us new life in Jesus Christ. We now entrust Wally to your merciful care. We do this in the faith of Christ Jesus, who died and rose again to save us, and is now alive and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit in glory forever. Amen. And so we take our leave of Wally. We acknowledge the great gap his death leaves in our lives. We commit ourselves to helping each other through the process of grieving to a new life beyond tears. May healing flow from sorrow and that hope emerge from darkness. And from this day forward, we can know and be grateful that that love that Wally encompassed and showed in all the ways that he served others continues to live on through his wife Joyce, his 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren, and a multitude of friends. Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, the source and power of life, with humble gratitude we offer thanks to you today for the life of Wally Johnson. We thank you for his love of family and friends, his service and devotion to humanity, his inspiration and encouragement of others, and his quiet spirit. The beauty of his life remains with us as a loving remembrance and blessing. We commend Wally to you now, trusting your eternal love and care. Amen. Christ went before us in death, as has Wally, showing us the way to eternal life. Celebrate the good life that you have shared with Wally and know what God has given, God has received. Thankful for the days shared with Wally, we can now know and be assured that God, our Creator, and Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, will fortify each of us in every word and deed. And now may the love of God, which is stronger than death, and which binds us together in the unity of life, fill our spirits to overflow with divine stillness now and forever. Having given Wally over to God, we now are sent off with a special song that both he and Joyce agreed would be played at our memorial services. So let us enjoy that song now.
You can dance, every dance with the guy that gives you the eye, let him hold you tight. You can smile, every smile for the man who held your hand and you propelled him right. But don't forget who's taking you home and in whose arms you're gonna be. So darling, save the last dance for me. Oh, I know that the music's fine, like sparkling wine, don't have your tongue. Oh, I know, laugh and sing around your own heart, don't give your heart to anyone. But don't forget who's taking you home and you know you're gonna be. So darling, sing the last dance for me. Baby, don't you know I love you so? Can't you feel it when we touch? I will never, never let you go. I love you oh so much. You can dance, go get you home till the night is gone and it's time to go. If he asks, if you're all alone, can he take you home? You must tell him no. 'Cause don't forget who's taking you home and in whose arms you're gonna be. So darling, save the last dance for me. Cross smile for the man who held your hand before death night. But don't forget to take me home and in the arms you're gonna be. So darling, save the last thing for me. Oh, I know that the music's fine, that sparkling wine will have your fun. Let me sing without your heart, don't give your heart to anyone. But don't forget to take me home and in the arms you're gonna be. So darling, save the last dance for me. Don't you know I love you so? Can't you feel it from my heart? I'll never, never let you go. I love you so, so much. We get there, go get me home till the night is gone and it's time to go. If we had, if you're all alone, and if you home, you must tell them no. Cause don't forget to take you home and in the love you're gonna be. So darling, save the last dance for me.